No one told me it was Kraken week. I'll keep it brief, but I want to point out something to y'all that I don't think most folks consider. Raw, the D&D Kraken is amphibious and has a 20-foot move speed. That means there's really no reason for it to be relegated to the oceans. Even though the whole point of Kraken week is underwater encounters, it's kind of about underwater encounters you'll see. You can have a Kraken whose lair is the bottom of a lake no more than a mile across. You can have a rainforest-dwelling Kraken who's king of the jungle, or a mountainous Kraken whose tentacles let it climb from peak to peak. You could even have a Kraken that lives in the desert and uses its swim speed to glide through the sandy dunes. So I just wanted to talk about that because I think it's cool. For a lake-dwelling Kraken, the most important point to note is that the regional effect will affect a primarily terrestrial region. Therefore, an expansionist Kraken might slowly but surely be eroding the lakeside with constant rainfall in order to raise the lake's water level. A more cunning Kraken that fears retribution from all those pesky adventurers might simply control the weather to make the surrounding region uninhabitable for humanoids in a more natural way. Because the Kraken can't control its water elementals, at least not raw, maybe it limits other sources of water in a 6-mile radius to avoid giving itself away. This can easily lead to a situation where a town finds the nearby lake or swamp swelling in size over the past couple months, or perhaps the plains they grow crops in have been flooded. Rivers overflowing and even the fish seem to avoid the fishers' lines. Then, drownings start happening, with water elementals appearing in the rapidly expanding bodies of water. Wells in towns, irrigation paths in farms, bathtubs of nobles, all while a Kraken slumbers, miles inland. A Kraken who rules the rainforest would easily be able to contend with the natural inhabitants, but perhaps it lives in a forest where trees' trunks are as wide as buildings, meaning even the mighty Kraken is reduced to an arboreal hunter. Even in a more traditional rainforest, the squid-like nature of the Kraken would mean it would be able to slide between the trunks and over the forest floor using its freedom of movement. Whether the Kraken floods the rainforest or not really depends on its personality and preferences. The party delves into the woods, the sun blocked out by a canopy thicker than the clouds. Piranhas, crocodiles, and leeches were unusually aggressive near any river crossing, though there was a sense of fear and panic in the eyes of all terrestrial fauna. Eventually, a downpour bogs the ground with mud and deafens any adventurer still cognizant enough to remain alert. And then, one of them goes missing, pulled into the canopy silently by a tentacle, as their party can't even hear or see that they're gone. For a mountainous Kraken, I think leaning into the associations of weather and lightning would be its strongest aspect. It can reach between peaks in a silent slither, and can create fog, rainstorms, and blizzards to suit its need. Stone giants are easy prey, and dragons are little more than tough game to fell. And the numerous valleys these mountains buttress against were carved by ancient rivers, which the Kraken can revive if it so wishes. Imagine, a party is walking through a mountain pass on a clouded night when lightning strikes in the distance. On the opposing mountain's peak, a coiled mass of tentacles and a single baleful eye that is matched only in intensity by the moon. Out of the party's dark vision range, they must wait for the flash to illuminate the sky once more, only for the Kraken to have disappeared. Of course, they have no way of knowing that it already scaled the peak of the very mountain they're walking along. For a desert-dwelling Kraken, you gotta have it swim in the sand. You might think the Kraken would want to cause rain, but it very well could make the sun even more severe. What few oases exist in the desert would become death traps with the water elementals within. And given how sparsely populated deserts are and how open they tend to be, there'd be nowhere for anyone to hide if subjected to the Kraken's lightning strike. I mean, come on, the party's walking in a desert where it's unbelievably hot, the sun beating down on them even worse than they expected. Then they see a mirage, the sand shifting as if something massive underneath was gliding. From the cloudless sky, a bolt of lightning strikes the party, sending them scattering as tentacles shoot out from the sand to drag them into a suffocating tomb. And none of that is even talking about changing the mechanics of it. Imagine changing the water elemental's regional effect to being fire elementals for a desert Kraken, or changing all the lightning damage for a mountainous Kraken into cold damage. As it stands, the Kraken is already incredibly versatile in whatever environment you throw it in. The only changes I would make across the board are to increase its speed if it's native to a non-aquatic environment. Maybe to 60 feet, but probably something closer to 40 feet. I'd want to expand the regional effect of aquatic creatures being charmed to probably also include amphibious creatures, just because these are all amphibious Krakens. Well, all Krakens are amphibious. That's how I came up with the idea. You might change the water elemental rule, like I mentioned before, but even in the desert, that's super flavorful, so you might keep it. Finally, I changed the ink cloud layer action to not necessarily require being underwater. If you need to justify causing an ink cloud in the air, just call it magic. I mean, the Kraken can already summon lightning. So that's my contribution to Kraken Week. I didn't know this was a thing until after the main folks involved made their videos, so I apologize if this comes off rushed. I wanted to cash in, I wanted to be involved because I love me some Krakens. Well, no, they're very scary, but they're also so cool. In terms of how to actually use these suggestions, honestly, I'd recommend lowering the Kraken's hit points by about 100 to 150, its strength by around 6, and lower its proficiency modifier and damage to suit whatever level your party is. Even an amphibious Kraken, as I described, should be a notable encounter with lots of buildup, but to actually run this without 2 years of playing just to get to the proper level, I'd recommend lowering some of the raw values. CR23 is actually pretty good for a party of level 13 or higher, but CR isn't that good to begin with, and parties of that high level go kinda crazy anyway. But that's for another video. Let me know what you think. Even if I misread anything raw, remember this is a game of make-believe and you can change whatever you want. This just happened to be what inspired me. Make sure to check out the other folks making videos cracking open this particular topic. Hey, I had to get one in. Have fun!